Okay, and welcome to Nerds at Night. All right, on tonight's show, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to give you a first play review on Star Ocean and Grand Kingdom. Also, we're going to talk about some of the big news out of Nintendo this week. And actually, Fireheart 47 will have some more information on that coming up.
Yep.
Also, we're going to have a couple of items of interest about NXT, including their role in WWE 2K17 and the fallout from the Shinsuke Nakamura-Finn Balor match. There's also a major show announcement later on about a new voice you'll be hearing. And I think we're going to finish it off tonight talking about a project we're starting and something that might turn into later, or ideas that we might want to do later. So as I already alluded to, that's Fireheart 47 over there, who just blissfully missed his cue.
That was a terrible cue.
I point right at you like I always do. Like, literally, for 12 shows now.
You always introduce yourself, so it was just weird. Anyway, next. Yes, Fire 47 and Kid Thunder DJ over there.
Yes.
With the terrible cues.
So, yes, this is, this has already started good. Okay, so now that we got all the intro stuff squared away, as always, you can find us on Facebook.com/nerdsatnight, Nite. Also, nerdsatnight.com and Nerds at Night on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, we're getting near our 10-hour limit for our podcast hoster, so some of our early episodes will only be available on YouTube going forward.
No, wow, they got that heavy of a limit on there?
Yeah, for the free version, we can only have 10 hours of audio.
Wow.
Yeah, and iTunes themselves doesn't save it. I mean, everybody's hosted by a service, and then they do an RSS feed, and that's how iTunes gets everything. Which is fine. I mean, they're being saved to YouTube, so you can go back and listen to anything.
Right.
All right.
So yeah, we'll work with that then.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about Star Ocean and Grand Kingdom. Now, I know you haven't gotten to play them yet, Fireheart.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to it.
But you have watched me play a little bit.
Small amounts.
Which, really, in reality, that's all I've actually played.
Really?
I don't think I got more than about 3 hours in Star Ocean. I have a little bit more time in Grand Kingdom.
I was going to say, you certainly seem more invested in Grand Kingdom.
I am, for a lot of reasons. And we'll go in more detail when we do these for YouTube. But just to kind of give everybody an overview, because they were the last couple of big major release games. I think everything else pretty big is going to be held off until Christmas, not counting the sports titles.
Right.
So we'll start with Star Ocean, which I have a little less playtime. And so far, it's a pretty good action RPG. Doesn't really feel like a Star Ocean game to me, but everything's going to be different when it goes from a PS2 era or even a PS1 era version to the modern system. There's just been so much time.
Well, I was going to say, that was a full generation gap.
Yeah, there might have been a PS3 version, but it doesn't spring to mind, which means it either wasn't good or wasn't released in the States. But it's a pretty standard RPG story. People are attacking your village. You've got to stop them. I'm sure I'm going to stumble into more of a larger world and bigger details. But it's a pretty fun model for action adventuring. You build up skills that'll give you a square or circle attack that are kind of special your moves. Those are your default special moves. And obviously magic users are magic-based or elemental-based. Or they can have healing effects. You know, it's all the same standard RPG fare.
Sounds, I was about to say, sounds kind of tropey, but, sometimes those are the best.
Yeah, and I mean, its story so far seems to be pretty good. One thing I've noticed that I don't really like, and it could all just be because it's early setup in the story, but you have party members enter and leaving your party so fast and only used for such a small part that it's very hard to get invested in anybody but the two main characters.
Yeah, I've had some games that do that where they'll bring in a couple characters for a couple moments that'll like follow you around or just be involved in the story, and then they're off again, or they don't act like the characters have just first met. It's characters that have known each other forever and ever, so it's kind of hard to understand like how the relationship has been or to know anything about these characters already,
Right, and I'll give this game credit that for like the main chick that follows you around, who actually is a fairly useful magic user. Usually early level magic users are a joke. She's actually fairly strong. Her heals kept me alive several times when I'd get mobbed. But they definitely make her personality clear up front and definitely make it clear that she's going to be around long term.
Yeah.
So,
interesting.
With any hope they'll kill her. And not for any other reason than makes the game interesting. Best part of Phantasy Star 4, A-list dies. A character that's been around from the first game, you feel like she's going to be the main character you're playing as, and about a third of the way through the game, she's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the first real intense moments I can remember in games I played. Because you go through hell to try to save her. I mean, you have to find this cure for what's making her sick, and you get it, I think, if I remember right. It's been a while since I've been that far in the game. But you get it, and you get there, and it's too late. Yeah.
Bummer.
Yep. And for your generation, or actually a little bit past your generation, it's like the Aerith death in Final Fantasy VII.
Right, that one's famous. Or infamous, whichever you'd like to describe it as.
Right. Now, let's move on to the one I'm enjoying more currently, which is Grand Kingdom. Now, I know I'm not going to spend as much time as Star Ocean in terms of explaining it, but that's because there's the best description ever out there. It's a more serious, strategy-based Dragon's Crown.
I thought that one was a lot. I thought Dragon's Crown was more action-oriented than this one was.
It is. That's what I'm saying. That's where you get the strategy game aspect.
Oh, yeah, but...
Because you have to worry about range, you have to worry about people being in the way of your attacks. So if, something causes one of your other team players to move in front of you on a linear attack, or even an arching attack, if they're still close enough to you, you're going to hit your teammate.
Looking at it, it kind of reminded me... I know this game isn't out yet, so it's kind of hard to use this as a descriptor or as a comparison, but it kind of seems like it's going to resemble the coming combat system that's in the new South Park game, the Fractured But Whole, how they've kind of updated the combat where you've got a section for your side that's a grid, like a 3x4 or so-ish grid that you kind of move your characters around on, and you can do attacks that have certain reach across these grid squares, and sometimes they'll hit far back or in a straight line, etc., etc. It's kind of like strategy and placement of how you put your characters and things like that. Does that kind of apply?
Kind of. It's definitely got a turn-based edge to it, so you've really got to think ahead of where you're going to put a character. And there's definitely that element there in the South Park games, and for what I've seen in Fracture But Whole, but we'll have to wait and see how that really plays out.
True.
But it's definitely a fun game. The story seems a little light. You're mercenaries working for an army of mercenaries, but you're not bad. You just kind of do jobs to help out whatever kingdom. There's an online mode you can join where you do jobs and missions for a specific kingdom, and it kind of becomes a conquest deal where eventually you build up enough reputation or whatnot that one side wins. I haven't done that part yet because that seems like too much work. But I figure after I get through the main story, I'm going to go for it. So we'll leave Grand Kingdom alone from there. Definitely worth checking out.
I was going to say, it sounds like that kind of mode will probably end up being kind of shallow, like the faction fighting in Mortal Kombat X. Like that one didn't play into anything at all, really.
I think it's a little deeper than that because you're actually doing quest-style missions. You just may be doing them in battle senses against other players. I'm not 100% sure. You move around the areas you're in kind of almost like a board game or a game like Final Fantasy Tactics where you have areas you can move. You're moving pieces and other pieces are moving to represent your enemies. You have targets and certain field condition areas. So it's definitely an element of strategy runs through every part of the game.
Yeah, it's a little bit more
in-depth
than I thought.
Yeah, because you have a limited set of moves on certain maps to accomplish your objectives by. So you can't just run around and explore.
Yeah, those are no fun.
It does make you focus on what you're doing.
Those are, but, as in, I'm never, I guess you can sort of junction this into, like Fire Emblem or something when they give you, turn limits. Those are always kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Because you got to make sure, you always want to, try and kill everything or make sure you take care of that enemy in the back that's got some powerful item on them that you can steal if you kill them, or something like that.
Right, and you certainly get time to do all that. It's just not an exploring part of the game,
Right.
which is fine. I mean, if you want to run around a wasteland exploring things, play Fallout.
I have been.
Yeah, that has stolen your life.
Right, I finally decided, like, it's summer, so I was finally like, okay, I've got the time, let's sit down and get into this, and oh my god, am I into this.
Right, and it's worth being into. It gets into your head. Now, moving on to Nintendo, and what they announced this week, and I'm not talking about Pokemon Go, and I'm not going to do 1,000 stories about idiots walking into traffic, playing into the game.
Walking into traffic, finding dead bodies, etc.,
Right.
etc., fighting amongst the teams.
It's a geocaching game. That was all going to happen. And it has nothing to do with Pokemon, because there was idiots doing all kinds of things on their phones, walking into things they shouldn't have, long before Pokemon came out. People would watch porn on their phones and walk into traffic, or playing Candy Crush.
Like I say, we're just general distractions. It happens.
Right.
But that's not what we're focused on right here.
Right. That being said, Pokemon Go is pretty fun. Although I'm a fat guy, so I don't walk much. I stop at Poke places in my car, not driving, but, pull into the parking lot of a Poke Center, get my stuff, see if there's Pokemon around, and then leave.
Nice.
My goal is to Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, my goal is to destroy the healthy aspects of this game without endangering others. So, no social skills, no losing weight by walking. I sound like a prick, I know, but I don't care. But anyway, we're moving on to the real story here.
Right.
And you actually brought this to my attention before it hit every news site, and that is the NES Mini.
Right. Basically, it's titled as the NES Classic Edition. And they said it's coming out on the 11th of November for about $60, about the price of a standard new game. And it's essentially like a plug-and-play type of console, like a little mini thing that, use an HDMI to plug into your game.
Which you mean kind of like the Atari Flashbacks or the Genesis 3?
As far as plug-and-play? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, things like
Preloaded
that,
games.
or like the little Pac-Man things, or
Right.
we've even resold some of those things, like just the little small cheap games that you can find, like at any like resale shop. That
Well, this is a little bit better than cheaper games for a couple of reasons.
Well, as I get into it.
Yeah, I was going to say, why don't you talk about some of the highlights on this?
Right. Basically, this comes packed in with 30 classic NES games, like built into this like MIDI game library that plugs into your TV, using HDMI.
Just your and hummings a lot, which I do too. But man, you have that real pronounced
Right.
Sounds almost like a buzzer.
Beep. Bored.
Sport.
Right. But yes. So, like I was saying, it uses it uses like an NES styled controller, like it's still shaped after it, but it plugs in with like the controller port that you use for the Wii nunchuck that you put into the Wiimote. So it can actually be used with the Wiimote to play things like the Wii U virtual console games and classic
and I'm
games
sure
like
any
that.
I'm sure any other 2-button game will work with it.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about how it hooks up to the TV. Now, when you were mentioning examples of other plug-and-play systems, most of them use AV cables,
Right, because
which
they're kind
means
of
standard
old.
resolution.
Right, they're fairly old kind of games, or old machines, I suppose, the plug-and-play games.
Right. This one uses HDMI cable. Now, there's no word yet on what I've read that it's really going to be HD graphics, but the fact that it's HDMI means it's going to be a standard upscale of 720 no matter what.
Right.
I mean, that's just the lower level resolution to read HDMI, if I understand it correctly.
I was going to say these are NES games, so no matter what, they're still not going to be, prim and proper, beautiful, but they're still going to look nicer than just trying to play, the original NES on your TV.
Well, let's look at some of these games. That brings up a point I was talking about this morning in another group about this thing when it hit the news wires, which is that, first of all, the game list is impressive. And as a reseller, which is what we really do to make money in this little dog and pony show, everybody was asking me, how's this going to affect you guys? And there's two schools of thought. The people who only want the core Nintendo titles never buy from us. They're not going to pay $20 for just Zelda.
Right.
And then $60 for a system. So that business was never ours to begin with.
And besides, ours always go out as soon as we get them, as soon as we get them anyway.
Well, yeah, but that's not the point I'm saying.
Well, I'm just saying.
Taking that business and applying this to it. What I do think it'll do to help us is for every, one out of, let's say, 5 or 10 people who buy this, when they get through all 30 of those games...
Or the ones that they're interested in, at least.
Well, yeah. They're going to go, hey, I'd really love to play, insert some non-Nintendo core title here that's not on this system. And you can't play cartridges on this system.
Right, this is just these 30 games.
It's an emulation box. It's a Raspberry Pi with 30 games. And that's another point, actually, before I move on, is that if these are emulated games, then, okay, fine. They'll play like they always played. If these are sort of like the virtual arcade console games that sometimes get edited, there may be things missing, cheat codes that don't work, glitches that are gone, which alienate old players, which feeds back into them going, you know what, I want the original. And that's where it might help us.
Potentially. That's something we would just kind of have to wait and see. Another note I think we forgot to mention that I do like is that just like the Virtual Console, this comes with save states. So as you're playing through a longer game like Final Fantasy, or maybe some of the games that don't have saves in general, you can set a save state and come back to it later. Or if you're at a spot that is really difficult, you can save it there and jump back in.
See, I've never really liked save states versus just having a in-game dedicated save model that'll just save to a space of memory on the SD drive. And the reason why is you lose that sense of urgency that a lot of these older games had. The few older games that allowed for saving, you could not ever really save at an opportune time.
Right, I can understand that. I believe it's in here. Yeah, like Metroid save spots, or Metroid. Didn't Castlevania have? Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of Symphony of the Night.
Right, but there was still dedicated save spots in a lot of these games that did allow saving.
Right, I mean, save states, it's kind of like, it depends on where you want to use them, and it's kind of like your own prerogative of whether you want to keep that integrity of the difficulty of like where you can save and where you can't, or if you just want to be able to go through it and just save before like a difficult boss that normally you don't have a save, like right at the end of the level.
And that's what people are going to do.
Yeah,
let's be honest, especially people who are out of practice playing.
Right.
They're going to be like, oh my god, I'm going to save right here before this castle boss because I don't have to worry about actually finding a save spot. Which is fine.
It's like I said, it's their prerogative. And if it gets people interested in the classics, more power to them.
And I agree, but it's just being a core guy who grew up playing this stuff when it was new, it bugs me that you little bastards will be able to do that stuff.
Right.
You know how frustrating it is to be at one spot.
Like here, it has Ghosts and Goblins coming out. One of the most infamously difficult games in the classic era.
Right.
Like going through it twice, and now they can just save state when they get to like a good safe moment.
Or Punch Out, having to put in 12 character codes every time you lost the fight to Tyson. Well, or in this game, Mr. Dream, and having to do that over and over again versus just having a save state. It's just, I know I sound like a grumpy old man, and I am, but it still bothers me that you people have that ability, and, I didn't when I was actually playing these games to beat them. Yeah. But we'll get off that. It definitely looks like a good value, and I do hope that I'm right that it'll get some of those closeted retro gamers that haven't really spent any money on the classics themselves. It'll kind of motivate them to do so after they blow through the titles in there.
One thing I know they can't go too far with this into their library, but I kind of hope they'll go into doing an SNES mini box as well, because there's a good lineup in the SNES library.
Oh, they will.
That would make a great set for this kind of a thing as well.
You can get a 128 gigabyte memory card now, SD card, for under like $60 in some places if you know where to look. And I'm sure way cheaper than that. I'm sure somebody in a comment or something will correct me, but I don't look for that stuff much, so I don't have prices off the top of my head. Anyway. But the point I'm making is all of this cartridge stuff is essentially the same sort of data or same sort of memory. It's all flash. So you could just flash all that out, which they have all this stuff backed up because they own it. They'll dump it on a card. They could basically rip off an emulator out there because those emulators are ripping them off.
Right.
So, it's really who
like
can fire the first shot there.
It's kind of like their own right, too.
Right.
In a weird way.
And boom, you make a peripheral and you're done. And they were smart enough to make their peripherals interact with one of their main systems because that keeps that cross-play capability, and they're hoping to snag some of the business from us of, hey, we've got more virtual titles over here.
Right.
Hey, that Wii you're not using, why don't you come in here and download missing games?
Now you can use this controller that we're packaging with this game and make it authentic.
Right. So it's definitely got the thing. And before we move on, actually, let me give you probably what I think are the top 10 games to own out of the 30. He's got all 3 Mario Brothers,
Nice.
old Zelda, so there's 5 right there. It's also got Kirby's Adventure.
Boom, there you go. That's number 1 for me. One of my number 1s. That's classic.
Final Fantasy.
Nice.
Mega Man 2. Metroid, which you already mentioned. And this one's for me, Star Tropics. I love that game. So that's that's my top 10.
And Super C, that's,
That's just Contra 2.
Why not?
Which is an interesting omission. Contra itself's not on here.
I'm kind of surprised they don't have the original Mega Man since they've got such a big
2
chunk
is a way better game.
Maybe so, but they got a good chunk of, collections right here, like the Marios and the Zeldas right now, that they couldn't figure out something that wasn't as necessary or something,
If this thing sells well, you're going to see a second model that's going to have cartridge sets. So you'll buy this little mini version of a cartridge that's got every Mega Man game or every Zelda game.
I was going to say, either something like that, or they're going to start making a model that can take, a cartridge that is a collection of just, another set of 30.
Well, that's what I just said.
Well, you were just saying, just Mega Man. I'm talking,
yeah.
I'm talking, another chunk of 30 random sets of games.
Right. If
that
this
you
thing
can just
sells
plug
well...
in.
Yeah, if this thing sells well, they're going to make an extensible version that they can expand games on demand, either through network, through cartridges, if they want to keep that retro feel. I mean, this is their test of the water, because this cost them nothing to make.
Right.
And we're going to see where it goes from there. But we've put too much time into that. So let's move on to NXT stuff. Because there's not really much other wrestling news besides the draft, and I don't want to sit there and guess on that over and over because we won't know until we know.
Right, and I'm not too knowledgeable on what's going on right there, so let's go on to our main focus of this section.
Well, yes, and this also ties into gaming. 2K17 has started to get some of its release notes out, some of the early preview stuff. They've already said one of the pre-order bonuses is Goldberg.
Right,
you can play as the WCW version of him as well as the WWE run. Outside of that, which was a great promo in and of itself, they're building the game to heavily be around Brock Lesnar. He's the cover athlete for this version. And then something interesting that really shows the value of the NXT brand. For the last few years, they've done a special limited order version. They do 50,000 or so of these, and you order it and you get a bunch of special stuff, not just download content.
Right.
2K15 or 14s was the Hulk Hogan bundle, where you got the Funko Pop and you got the piece of the ring from his return and a signed autograph card.
Right. That one was all hulked out.
I believe the last one was Austin 316. There was one that did a big feature about the Undertaker. This year's is NXT, and you get a lot of cool stuff with it. And in fact, we're going to go ahead and play the trailer, the reveal trailer for all this, and then we'll talk about what it comes with.
Does it,
Introducing the WWE 2K17 NXT edition.
We are NXT!
Get the NXT Enhancement Pack to play as 3 of the top superstars in NXT. Apollo Crews.
Already on the main roster.
Nia Jax.
She is an unbelievable athlete, and she's as dangerous as the day is long.
We'll probably be on the main
Shinsuke
roster soon.
Nakamura.
I was going to say, is this trailer...
And Nakamura will
Give
probably
your
be the next
created
NXT
superstar
champion.
an extra
I was
boost
going
in
to say,
their
is this
journey through
trailer have audio?
NXT.
Like actually saying who you're reviewing?
NXT
Not just
Edition
visuals?
also includes
Yes.
an exclusive Demon Finn Balor 8-inch statue,
Here comes Balor!
a Topps WWE 2016 trading card with an actual piece of the ring mat from NXT TakeOver London, and a limited edition portrait by Rob Schamberger featuring Shinsuke Nakamura, hand signed by the king of strong style himself. All of this incredible content for just $99.99. Supplies are limited, so pre-order now and be a part of NXT history.
Okay, so that's the end of the main trailer there. They show some of the cover art and stuff. So the reason why Fireheart interjected in there about the audio is right now only one of us can hear at a time without playing it over speakers. So let's review what was in there. So you get the NXT Enhancement Pack, which adds Shinsuke Nakamura, Nia Jax, and Apollo Crews as playable characters. Now, of those three, I know you really only know one.
Well, I recently saw Nia Jax against Asuka. She really wasn't that interesting to me. I think we talked about this before at some point or another on a podcast or otherwise
Right,
a video. I thought we did. But either way, yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura is definitely the primary interest out of this selection of new characters to play as.
And you know they had to rush to get him in because he debuted not that long ago.
Yeah, maybe like a month or two.
No, it's been longer than that because he debuted in time to compete at NXT TakeOver Dallas, which was the night before WrestleMania. So that's April.
Okay, so 3. But,
Right.
yeah. Either way, yes, very much the most interesting character, in my opinion, out of the 3 revealed. I'm surprised they didn't go with Finn Balor, but...
Well, he's already in the game.
Was he?
Yeah, he was in this year's game.
Okay.
That was his debut.
That's
do
right.
think it would have been cool if you could have gotten some more of the more interesting variants of his color paints, like when he did the all black and white for his his return match with Samoa Joe for the belt, because it's kind of a in joke with his fans that when his paint scheme's very black and white, it's almost a sign that he's going to lose, because it's kind of a warning thing. Like his English, especially since they were hyping up from NXT's appearance in London. I wish they would have had like the NXT London version of his costume with the bowler hat and the more poofed out tendril style. That'd look really cool.
I don't believe I've seen that one, but they might do that. I mean, I don't think... I mean, have you seen the entire costume list or whatever?
No, and they won't put that out until the end. That'll be about a month out before we really see everybody and everything.
That might be a thing that's in there. Who knows?
Who knows? But the 8-inch statue of Demon Finn Balor would be pretty cool.
That
little
would be
collectible.
That'd be sick.
Same for the trading card. It's nice, but nothing big deal.
And a
The
ring light.
Nakamura signed picture would be cool, but I still have the Hulk Hogan signed one from the 2K15 set, and it's all right.
Yeah.
A little bit light if you really think about it compared to years past when you got things that would actually hold value, like the exclusive Funko Pop figure. But just the fact that they're like doubling down on NXT being such a big thing that it's getting a huge presence in their games, which is not the first time this has happened. For 2K14, the previous gen systems got the Who Got NXT mode, which was way better received than the My Career mode on the new systems. I mean, NXT is a thing.
Nice.
And it's definitely one of the more popular brands out there, and if you look at all wrestling. Which brings us to my next point, and you watched this match with me. Where do they go in NXT after Nakamura versus Balor? I mean, we watched that match.
Right.
It was a one-match show, literally.
Right. That was that alone is just like an impressive detail.
Right, to carry a whole hour show, building around one in-ring angle, and then a lot of promo and build-up for this.
Right.
And what else could you do with those two? I mean, we know Finn Balor's going to the main roster this week on the draft.
Right.
I mean, they can't not. They have to strengthen they have to strengthen the rosters. They need new talent up there, and there's nothing left for Balor to do in NXT.
Right.
So what did you think of the match itself?
It was brutal as all hell. Like, this was the first time I think we've ever seen Shinsuke take such a beating in a match. Finn put him through the works, you know.
Yes, Finn really did control a large amount of the match, which is a good indication that the other guy's going to win. It's a great way to make them look strong. They overcome the thing. But it's usually not done in a face versus face match like that.
Yeah.
Usually a face versus face where they want to keep both of them face, it's a lot more even.
Right. Yeah, and like we were saying, they both took a lot of damage by the end of it. They were brutally beaten by the end of it, but even still, Shinsuke definitely seemed to take the brunt of the damage because Finn was targeting, you know, his legs and his knees, so he
couldn't hit the Bamoye or the Kinsasa, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah, and that was smart.
It was smart, right? You know, targeting the person's most effective weapons.
Right, but I'm not talking from a, watching it on TV and trying to make it believable angle.
Well, yeah.
I'm talking about from a booking standpoint, and just shows the intelligence of Balor and Nakamura that's what those two guys who've known each other for 10 years would do.
Really?
I mean, really, any opponent who's watched 10 seconds of Nakamura match footage would know, we got to take the leg out.
Right.
Because that's how he's going to beat me. He's going to put his knee right across my temple, and I'm going to go to sleep.
I'm going to take a nap.
Right. and that's what's missing from the business in general, is that there's not that psychology anymore. And I think what kept that match going, even in the slow spots, is that even the slow spots were feeding that psychology. When Finn would slow it down and do those different holds, they were all centered on the knees.
Oh, yeah. We saw one that, like, wasn't it one like they were saying how they hadn't seen a move like that before, to where he kind of like folded his knee back over itself?
Well, yeah, I mean, he basically just did an arm trap sharpshooter, because he locked his leg the same way you would do it in a sharpshooter, but rather than using his own legs for the leverage points, he was using his arm and leaning back. So, I mean, it's not hard to see that move working, probably a little bit more logically than a sharpshooter. But it was still a great match. It still told a great story. And again, it was on an hour show. The match itself went over 20 minutes.
Right. It was like a 22-minute match, I believe they said, by the end of it.
Right. And
it ended strong, too. Like, after they were done with it, they like did a handshake and everything. And
right.
They were respectful to each other. It was a good match.
They kept both guys babyface, which is another indication that Balor's on his way out, because there's no need for a return then. If Balor would have turned on him and attacked him after the match, then you'd be left with that desire for a follow-up.
Right. It's like, you would be leaving like a line of like, oh, what's next? There's going to be a comeback fight after this. Nothing was settled. Right.
And commentator dialogue was all what's next for Shinsuke. We know what's next for him now. He's going to fight Samoa Joe at NXT Brooklyn 2.
Right, yeah. Samoa was kind of pulling that at the beginning, like calling him out. Calling him out
about them just deciding that the winner gets a title shot.
Or he's the king of strong style, and that Samoa's apparently been that for X amount of years.
Yeah.
So
that'll be an interesting match in and of itself.
It kind of just sounded like Samoa was just trying to like call up to this guy's title. It was just like,
oh yeah, I mean, it was like, totally. They're building everything.
It kind of just sounded like he was just jealous.
Calendar.
In an odd sense, he was just like jealous, like that's supposed to be me.
No, I really don't think it was that was supposed to be me. It was definitely more of just we're going to already have heat with each other. You're going to go win your match, and everybody already knows this was going to happen, so we're just going to go with it going to happen where we're going to fight.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. And it was exactly what they needed, because they're in a very odd spot with so many guys leaving. And we talked about this before about what happens when that master class of talent leaves. And they've survived one or two guys going to the main roster at once, but a lot of guys have left, as I've said before, in pretty short succession. More are leaving. I know they've got guys in the wings, and I'm pretty sure this Cruiserweight Classic is going to feed into some guys getting NXT jobs and maybe even main roster jobs. But I'm still a little concerned as to where they're going to go. And I hope it plays out well. I honestly would like to see less focus on indie guys. I mean, there's only one or two left out there I'd really go for. They really need to get Eric Young under contract. Maybe the Motor City Machine Guns, if they're even still really active. The Young Bucks, although they turn them down at every turn. But but outside of that, they need to get some more of these guys that have been hanging around a while in better condition.
Yeah.
Ty Dillinger. I mean, the guy... Nia.
Well, maybe just like acting it up in the crowd, maybe kind of better that, but...
Nia, I really don't see where NXT is the place for her.
Yeah.
She's one of those people who's not going to be molded by training staff. She's going to be molded by working with divas better than her and learning her craft from them.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like what I was getting to, like, just getting better at like playing the role, I suppose.
Well, but in her case, she's not going to do it in NXT. She's not going to really improve until she gets to the main roster.
Maybe, yeah.
And some guys do that. Some guys work better just kind of being thrown in that big match situation where they're handhelded for their first couple of matches until they get the psychology and the actions. So we'll see where that goes with her.
Right.
I'm not ready to give up on Nia Jax as a valid monster heel for the division. Anyway.
Right.
So moving along from wrestling, which we put way too much time into as usual, we got kind of a big announcement for the show coming up. I think we got video games and retro stuff like that covered pretty well. You usually cover anime and other news, right?
Occasionally, yeah.
But we don't really cover like collectible stuff because all I really collect is old games.
Right. And I just help you with that. So.
Right. Other areas of pop culture and geekdom. So I asked a good friend of mine if she would be interested in joining the show. So sometime in future episodes, Real Gamer Girl 101 will be joining us.
Right. One of our friends who helps us out over, or also is a vendor over things like the toy show.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yes, her and her fiance run Catman Games. Very knowledgeable in her own right. She isn't like other quote-unquote gamer girls who... The closest they come to games are Facebook games.
Or Call of Duty or basic stuff like that.
Right, real basic games or MMORPGs. She plays real games. She has real knowledge of retro and modern games, as well as a ton of the other knowledge out there that I don't have, like Doctor Who. She knows a lot about different voice actors out there in games and stuff. I mean, she's just a big-time Resident Evil fan. So a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas of geek culture. So we look for her in the next couple of episodes to be joining us. All right.
I believe that leaves us with that fun little announcement of our project.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not really an announcement other than the fact that...
just talking about it.
Right. That I'll have some pictures of it and each step of it. And kind of be thinking while I talk about this about like projects like this you've wanted to do. Or things like this you thought would be awesome to have. And that is we're doing our own bar top arcade setup. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of these floating around. We got the idea from a vendor at Toyman who was selling ones that he would put together, but they were over $1,000.
Right, there's a lot of work on them.
The lowest count is like 80-in-1 arcade machines. They're JAMA board based, so they play like as close to the real arcade machine as you can get. Real joysticks, buttons, everything, multiple players.
A huge selection, huge selection of games. They were really cool.
Yeah, ours is going to be a 619-in-1 machine.
Whoa.
We actually already got 2 of the parts in. We got the monitor and the power supply for the JAMA board.
Oh, is that what came in the other day?
Yeah, that's what came in today.
Cool.
And we just sent in the graphics to the guy cutting the frame for us, so it'll have the graphics on it when it ships, which will be done in the Sailor Moon fan fiction site that my wife does, as well as on the other side, our logo for Nerds at Night Gaming.
Sounds like it's going to be pretty awesome.
It is. And we'll post pictures and maybe some videos and stuff of getting it up and going. Should be interesting because even though it's got all the parts and everything, we still have to do the hard work of wiring and mounting and making sure everything is aligned correctly and it looks good.
Figuring out a damn place for it.
Well, the place for it ain't going to be so hard. I actually got a couple ideas about that. I think since those kind of games are fairly kid-friendly, it's probably going to live upstairs so we can start introducing the younger ones to older games.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Let them play around on, games like the original X-Men versus Street Fighter or, I don't know, Simpsons or Ninja Turtles. Beat-em-up games that take no talent.
Yep.
And basically unlimited quarters. Because I'm not going to go that crazy. Because there are some people who go crazy and do coin mech versions of them, where it's got to read a certain amount of coin mech based on what they set the dip switches for. I'm not going that crazy with it. Because you also supposedly have to pay taxes on those. And I don't like paying taxes on anything, let alone something that's not leaving my house and not making money.
Right.
So how about you? Any other projects like that you'd want to do?
I mean, nothing that just jumps off the top of my head, to be honest. But, those have never been something that's, been thought of as a possibility in my mind, I suppose.
It'd be nice if these cases for these were a little more square to do, a PC build inside one. And not just a PC to play main games, but I mean, the big board cube desktop I have, fitting it into an arcade machine style case. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be neat. So it doubles as the arcade and your computer?
Well, it could, but I just mean just for the sake of that case.
The case, yeah.
In the artistic style.
I thought you were talking about a 2-in-1, on this side or something. You got a monitor built in that you can just play an arcade off of it or something. That'd be crazy as hell.
It would be, but I'm not entirely sure that doing it on double mode like that would be worth it, because with everything I do on my desktop to begin with, I utilize 2 monitors and everything else. That would be very difficult to do other than just the aesthetics of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to be the biggest problem, is making everything look good in a tight space with the system that we're getting. But it will be 2 players. It'll play as much like a real arcade machine as possible.
Yep. Sounds like it's going to be pretty cool once we all get it done.
Yep. There's something I remember I wanted to bring up. And if I brought it up on the last episode, I'm sorry. But I did actually finish Lego Star Wars.
I don't believe you did.
Yeah, The Force Awakens.
I don't believe you mentioned it.
I finished the main story. And there's a couple of things about this game that I'm actually pretty impressed with.
Oh, they did it?
Well, in all the Lego games, you can earn gold bricks by getting True Jedi or whatever, the maximum coin counter.
All kinds of the collectible stuff that extend the game out 100 hours.
Right. Rescuing people, finding them just hidden in certain spots.
Having all the various abilities and powers that every other character has. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, when you get a certain amount of each one, you unlock levels that are built around some of the backstory information between each of... Well, not between each of, but between the end of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's been really good for keeping me interested post-play, because I don't care about having every mini-kit or unlocking every character. But this, forces me to go back through some of these levels and find gold bricks so I can continue the story.
Right, because they're expanding on some background information, basically.
Right.
Interesting.
You learn a little bit more about Poe Dameron and some of the other characters like that. And it's been real good for fleshing out the story.
Right, that's actually pretty interesting. It's not something you usually can expect out of a Lego game, to really have a lot of the focus be put on something like that.
Right, and this is, like I said, this is relatively a new thing. Because
I can appreciate that.
Before, it would just be, okay, if you want to keep playing after beating the story, you can unlock more characters or try to get the Lego City.
Here's a blank set of levels that you can, or not blank, but here's some characters that you can still unlock that can do some extra things, or don't do extra things. You might already have someone that can do it, or you can get access to this one extra planet or world or level or whatever. That I mean, it's kind of cool, but you see one, you see one, you see enough of them.
Right, and this is very important for a game like this, because this game is centered around one movie. Where most of the Lego games are centered around a couple of movies, or a movie and a lot of side information that may as well be its own movie. So to drag a game like this out a lot like that is very appreciated.
I was dragging it out in a more meaningful way.
Right. Because it could have felt like a very slight game, just like the Lego Movie game, because where else are they going to go right now? You're almost kind of waiting for when they just release a trilogy of the new ones later on.
Well, that one wasn't even that bad. What I started to have issues with were, like, the Marvel and DC superhero ones, because they just started getting so big with their worlds that it was overwhelming and kind of boring at the point to start going through them.
Right.
And then there was just, like... It wasn't worth trying to find everything, because it was just like...
Right. Like
you take 10... Not even... That's lowballing it. You take 50 hours running through this giant world, collecting every damn thing in it, just to unlock another one.
Right.
Like, so
and the worst part of it was they cashed in on the popularity of Deadpool, where the only way you could get him was to unlock every other character.
Oh, wow, screw that.
Yeah,
I didn't even know...
That's what I said.
I didn't even know that was a thing, but wow, yeah.
Right. I was like, screw that noise. It's just not worth it to someone who has a career and another side business and a life and a dignity and a liver to destroy. Look, the brain cells died.
Liberty would also... I was like, okay, you could be going with somewhere with Liberty. Where are you going with that?
No, I can't. I'm just showing how many brain cells have died.
A liberty to destroy stuff or something?
All right, smartass.
Well,
anyway. So, yeah, that's that. And I don't know if I brought this up in the last show either, but just when I thought I was out with Lego Dimension, they're doing like a whole second season of sets.
Oh, God, now?
Right.
For like...
Yep.
How long has it been out? Like a year or two?
About a year.
Man.
But that's smart that you don't have to go out and buy a whole other $65 game when they're going to do the same thing they did before, which is throw out a couple new level packs, as well as just some playset characters.
Well, yeah, that's nice, but it does kind of feel like it's the point where it's just like, I guess this is just me not being that much into these playset or playbox games, of just having too many sets, I suppose.
That's possible. And the thing about Lego D versus the other sets is they're trying to be conscious about what else you can do with these things when this is over. And at least with Legos, like I said, I can take all these play sets apart, dump them in my bucket of Legos, that's it.
You got toys.
You got toys.
And that's kind of like the same thing, like why some of the amiibos are so cool is because they're known characters. They're cool and they can work as just collectibles.
The amiibos are nice as collectible art. You kind of get that with some of the Disney Infinity, but they make the figures so underwhelmingly detailed that it just...
Well, between that and just like these chibi versions,
right.
They're not as like authentic as, again, the amiibos. Those are literally the character in their likeness.
Well, I mean, no, the Disney Infinity token characters look like they're characters in-game, which is done in a very cartoony style. So even like serious, real people-based characters, like the Force Awakens characters, have that cartoony, pastel-y look, even in their figures. So it's not really anything worth collecting.
Yeah.
Plus, they just shitstorm dumped, if you'll excuse my language, all of them out at once, and there's always a bunch extra. I mean, the clearance aisle for these Toy Box Games toys is almost all Disney Infinity.
Right.
You'll see a value spike in a couple months after the last few sets are released, and that's it. And everybody tries to snap up what's left. But then once the interest in the game is fully dead, they're gone.
Right.
Which unfortunately is going to happen to Skylanders as well. And it's already started happening. Pairing them up with like Donkey Kong and everything else to do console-specific one
and now
really didn't have the desired effect.
Yeah,
right,
it didn't have the desired... It kind of shows that they're struggling.
They are, and that's because there's not really much left you can do in that world. Lego is made up of so many smaller worlds that they could expand on, like the Simpsons world, Wizard of Oz, X-Men. I have the feeling we're going to see a Star Wars set. We're going to see a Marvel set in Lego D.
Yeah, a Star Wars set is surprisingly... I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I know they got... Huh?
I said it's because they had it in Infinity.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's actually might be why, is they've got some weird cross issues between Infinity
and... Well,
yeah,
they held those sets back to put into that game. And if you really read what was said by Disney when they announced they were closing this down, they more or less said, we're going to explore cheaper opportunities to do these kind of games.
Oh, wow.
Which means we're not doing this anymore Lego's kicking our ass with this.
Let's join them.
Let them do it.
Let's join
Right.
them. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure on the full situation, like if about that part, but yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, they're definitely jumping on board to them.
All right. Well, we got about just under 10 minutes here, so I want to talk about reputable businesses, especially for retro stuff. I've been dealing with a business now a couple of years that we've been here. I'm not going to name names because this is the first time I've had any real issue with them, so I'll give them a chance to redeem themselves. Bought a system, Sega Master System. I report problems with the control ports. Told them what they can do to fix it. Say, hey, just pull the ports out, resolder them, should be good to go. I've seen their soldering work. They could have knocked this out, no problem.
Yeah.
They call me back, or I call them back actually, after the weekend.
Check in.
Right, and they're like, oh, it must be the controllers. We used a Sega controller and everything worked perfectly. No.
Right.
Same problem.
We got it right back. Multiple set of controllers we checked. Still issued.
Right. And then I thought about it since we've gone on air. They said they used Afterburner to test the game, which focuses a lot more on moving left and right, which was working, than up and down, which wasn't.
Right. You always need to make sure you're checking a game that tests all the buttons.
Right. So it's frustrating because they're good guys to do business with. I consider myself, friendly with them. They'll show me stuff they get in that they think I could flip faster than them. I'll talk about bringing stuff to them. But it just kind of bugs me that they took such a slapdash approach to a repeat business customer.
And a basic issue.
Right. And, I've got a backup plan to get it fixed. In fact, Sunday I'm going to drop it off with the guy who's going to be able to fix it for me. So it's no big deal to me.
Gonna say your buddy?
Yeah. But it's like, we run an every other month operation, and we have people who come back to these shows just to deal with us because they know they can get a hold of us, and we're going to do whatever we can to make it right. And this is, a side business at best. This is a company that ostensibly is running as a multi-level operation because in addition to all the stuff they sell, they do cell phone repairs, computer repairs. Doesn't that kind of make you distrust their work?
Potentially. I don't know the company well enough to know myself about what all they do, but yes, this was kind of shoddy. I guess not even workmanship, but just customer service, I suppose.
Right. It just seemed like they got lucky with it working, took the easy road out so they didn't have to tie up their own hands for what would have been free work, because I wasn't going to pay for them to fix something that didn't work, especially when I was in the window to return it. I chose to keep it. They did offer me the chance to return, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep it and see and take you at your word that it works. And it doesn't. And I'm sure if I raised hell with them, I could get them to refund it. But since I know somebody who could fix it, I'd rather fix it and have it. Because it's a Sega Master System. It was complete in box. And it's one of the few Sega systems I'm missing.
Right.
So, we'll see what happens. And I brought that up just to remind people about be careful about even seemingly decent businesses you deal with when you're dealing with these retro products. Because I could test something, and this has happened to us. I test something when I get it in. 4 or 5 months go by, it finally sells. They bring it back to me, say it doesn't work. I exchange it out or refund it. I bring it back, and it works.
Or, clean up or something.
Right, well, not even that. Sometimes it's just, and this wasn't even an expensive game, but I ran into a problem once where a copy of Mortal Kombat would not work on one Sega Genesis.
I think I remember that. That was a pain.
It was. Worked on every other system I had. Every other game I sold the guy worked. But Mortal Kombat, any cartridge, would not work on this Sega.
So it was the console's issue, basically?
It was that console's issue. It was probably a revision in the hardware because Sega was known for that. All of them were known for that. Or just something with a change in the cartridge. And Mortal Kombat's cartridge set just wouldn't work on this thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's always weird problems out there, but that's why you got to make sure to take the time to investigate. And that goes for the people buying as much as it does for the people selling.
Right.
All right. Well, we rambled on long enough. So, anything you want to wrap up with?
Not
Anything
much,
you're looking forward to coming out?
Nothing touched too soon, I don't think. I mean, we're still a little bit off from anything important coming out, but...
when did you say the new season of Ruby was due out?
New Ruby starts October 22nd, so we still got a couple months for that. But
Right,
yes, I'm very much hyped.
Well, yeah, because I figure we'll let you do a simple episode. Not really recap, because I don't want to spoil anything, but just kind of your
Thoughts?
opinion on each episode.
Maybe each episode, as well as just or maybe at least the first episode, because there's going to be a big change, I think, in like the animation style. So once it's finished and official and publicly out, we could probably talk about just kind of how it's changed and how it may or may not have improved.
All right, well, we'll look forward to that when that comes out.
I think the other thing we could say is the next toy show is when that is. If you
That's in September, so we got some time.
Well, yeah.
We'll remind people closer to time.
Okay.
All right. So for Nerds and Night Gaming, this is Kid Thunder DJ.
And Fire 47.
Hey, look, he got the cue. Let's clap for him.
Hey, he actually said his name that time for the cue.
Oh,
God, we're brothers.
right. This is why we'll never be on radio.
Good night.
All right, good night,
guys.
everybody.